Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. 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 بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. دعاء-e-Tawassul. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. اللهم إني أسألك وأتوجه إليك بنبيك نبي الرحمة محمد صلى الله عليه وآله. يا أبا القاسم يا رسول الله، يا إمام الرحمة، يا شفيع الأمة، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يديك حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا أمير المؤمنين، يا علي بن أبي طالب، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا فاطمة الزهراء، يا بنت محمد، يا قرة عين الرسول، يا سيدتنا ومولاتنا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيهة عند الله، اشفعي لنا عند الله. يا أبا محمد، يا حسن بن علي، أيها المجتبى يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله، يا حسين بن علي، أيها الشهيد يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن الحسين، يا زين العابدين يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي، أيها الباقر يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله، وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا. يا وجيها عند الله، اشفع لنا عند الله. يا أبا عبد الله يا جعفر بن محمد، أيها الصادق يا ابن رسول الله، يا حجة الله على خلقه، يا سيدنا ومولانا، إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا إبراهيم يا موسى بن جعفر أيها القاسم يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن موسى أيها الرضا يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا جعفر يا محمد بن علي أيها التقي الجواد يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا الحسن يا علي بن محمد أيها الحادي النقي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا أبا محمد يا حسن بن علي أيها الزكي العسكري يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا وصي الحسن والخلف الحجة أيها القائب المنتظر المهدي يا ابن رسول الله يا حجة الله على خلقه يا سيدنا ومولانا إنا توجهنا واستشفعنا وتوسلنا بك إلى الله وقدمناك بين يدي حاجاتنا يا وجيها عند الله اشفع لنا عند الله يا سادتي وموالي إني توجهت بكم أئمتي وأدتي ليوم فقري وحاجتي إلى الله وتوسلت بكم إلى الله فاستشفعت بكم إلى الله فاشفعوا لي عند الله واستنقذوني من ذنوبي عند الله فإنكم وسيلتي إلى الله وبحبكم وبقربكم أرجو نجاة من الله فكونوا عند الله رجائي يا سادتي يا أولياء الله صلى الله عليهم أجمعين ولعن الله أعداء الله ظالميهم من الأولين والآخرين آمين رب العالمين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. May I request a Surah Fatiha for all the marhumin, all your marhumin, all the sponsors of during Ramzan, and dua for all those who are sick and in need of recovery. بحق محمد وآل محمد اللهم صل على محمد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين ثم الصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب إله العالمين أبي القاسم محمد اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. Respected elders, brothers and sisters, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. And my first of my Eid greetings to you today on the day after Eid al-Fitr. My congratulations to all the believers on your fasting and your ibadat. May Allah accept all of our pious deeds in this month, forgive all of our sins, and help us become better Muslims for the year to come. Ilahi Ameen. Welcome back to Tuesday night. This is exciting. We're back on our program, and inshallah, we're going to continue our discussion around the Ahlul Bayt and learning about their biographies. The focus of this discussion, just to kind of refresh, that on Tuesday nights, as we take the time to recite Dua-e-Tawassul, we also take the time to talk about and learn about who it is that we're taking the Tawassul of. Tawassul is from the concept of seeking a wasila. This concept of seeking a wasila is not something that we came up with. Rather, it's something that Allah recommends and pushes us towards in the Quran when He says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu ittaqullah wabtaghu ilayhi al-wasila. But Allah tells us that have fear of Allah, be pious, and take a wasila, a connector to reach Allah and to meet your needs with Allah. In other places as well in the Quran, we have a discussion around the concept of shifa. And one of the important conversations that every Muslim is aware of is where Allah discusses and He says in Ayat al-Kursi, Man dhalladhi yashfa'u indahu illa bi'idhnih. Allah doesn't say that there's no such thing as shifa. Rather, He says, who is he that can intercede on the behalf of Allah? Illa bi'idhnih, except by His permission. Meaning that Allah possesses the ability to grant permission for some to intercede on the behalf of others. And what we find is that Allah's selection of certain human beings on this earth and certain people on this earth to be guides, to be imams, to be the leaders of humanity is a way of Allah showing that they have the right of intercession. The aspect of this right of intercession is also described in Surah Al-Munafiqun. إِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمْ تَعَالَوْا يَسْتَغْفِرْ لَكُمْ رَسُولُ اللَّهِ لَوْ رَؤُوسَهُمْ وَرَأَيْتُهُمْ يُسَدُّونَ وَهُمْ مُسْتَكْبِرُونَ. Surah Munafiqun, this particular verse where it talks about that if they are told, the hypocrites are told to come to the Prophet, and the Prophet would seek forgiveness for them, لَوْ رَؤُوسَهُمْ, they turn away their heads, وَيُسَدُّونَ وَهُمْ مُسْتَكْبِرُونَ, and they refuse, and they are the ones who are being proud about this. Nowhere does Allah say that the Prophet does not have the right for intercession. Understanding these general points and the discussion around shifa'ah and intercession is very extensive, and we'll mention it again briefly throughout our discussions, shows us and points to us the reality that there are people who have the right to intercede. There are people who Allah appoints and chooses for us to seek intercession through. And that Allah Himself has recommended that to get the most that you can from Allah, ask those who have that position to be your assistants through this process. So which is why this dua is very important. Seeking tawassul from someone who is qualified in the eyes of Allah to give us tawassul is also very important. And therefore knowing about them is very important. Looking at this collective of logic that we just walked through is why on Tuesday nights we take the time to recite this dua, which is connected with Tuesdays. And we ask each of these personalities, Ishfa' lana indallah. Ya wajihan indallah, Ishfa' lana indallah. So, oh one who is connected to or associated with Allah, intercede for us with Allah, that our hajat are answered, our sins are forgiven, our needs are met, and our status is raised. All of these and the other du'as that we make are always something that we want to answer. And one of the ways that, for example, when we take each of these 14 names in Dua-e-Tawassul, we want to know more about them so that when we approach them, we can appreciate the honor that they possess. In our story about the Ahlul Bayt, we've been talking about the life of our Holy Prophet Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. And we completed on the discussion around the hijrah of the Holy Prophet, where he was forced to leave the city of Mecca and move to the city of Medina. Now, in the lifespan of the Holy Prophet, his nabuwwat of active messengership was for a period of 23 years. The first 13 of those years were spent actively teaching the religion of Islam in the city of Mecca, and the final 10 years of his message, as we mentioned, were spent in the city of Medina. This 10-year period of time is where the fundamental establishment of what we know of as Islam today took place. Most of what you hear about and discuss about what is Islam and what was Islam like and how did the Prophet live comes from a lot to do with these 10 years, because in these 10 years, our Prophet did most of the establishment of Islam as a social system, a legal system, and even, for example, a system of religious law. Most of the religious law is passed during this time. These 10 years, there's a great analysis, and it is within itself a miracle that what Islam is today, the Prophet accomplished that in 10 years of laying out all of those teachings and all those responsibilities in this period of time. How? Well, one of the ways that we look at this is even in the verses of revelation of the Quran. Those verses of Quran revealed in the first 13 years in the city of Mecca, majority of the conversation revolves around understanding aqa'id, the philosophy of faith, understanding tawheed and what is nabuwwat and what is imamat and ma'ad and the day of judgment. In the 10 years in Mecca, most of the laws are laid out about how to fast, how to pray, how to perform hajj, how to give zakat, all of these obligations of staying away from musakkirat, of intoxicants, from treatments and talaq, and all these things are discussed in a period of 10 years. And the social law system is established at this point in time, and the judicial system is established, as well as the financial systems are structured, the buying and selling is established. All these rules that we take a look at as part of our faith, they kind of came down in this 10-year period, majority of them, for us to understand. So from a legislative perspective, it's a very big period of time. From also the aspect of establishing Islam as a world religion, that the campaigns that were fought or the campaigns that were sent, which numbered to approximately 80 during the life of the Holy Prophet, all took place in the city of Medina. And they are the ones that established Islam to be a system of government, as well as establish the rules of warfare and social structures. All became something that came through this 10-year period, and which is why it's an amazing period to study. Even the concept of treaties. We talk about the Treaty of Hudaybiyah as a treaty that was conducted in this time period of 10 years, and we'll mention it inshallah as we go forward. But that's not the only treaty. One of the first things that our Prophet does is when he reaches Medina, he establishes a treaty that acknowledges all the people in the city of Medina and associates with them rights and responsibilities. The first treaty that he makes, and this is something really important, involves the Muslims, involves the Jewish people, and involves the pagans of Medina, and creates peace and equity of treatment in society for all of these people altogether. The significance of that is to say is that many times what we do is when we want to create a treaty, we pick to choose to create a treaty with people that we like. And people that we disagree with, we cast them out as if they have no right in the situation. Our Prophet didn't do that with anyone. He created space for every person to be part of that society. And it's one of the amazing things to study and analyze of how our Prophet accomplished so many amazing things in this 10-year period of time. To mention again, the treaties, the battles, the social laws, social structure and society, the working together. It's a really amazing period of time in which Islam flourishes and Islam becomes a world religion and conquers all of Arabia. Anyone who wants to look at historically what the Prophet accomplished has to look at this 10-year period of time. And it is a miracle at the extensiveness and the comprehensive nature, and which shows the divinity of this religion, that it encompasses all of these different aspects of life in one shot and brings it together. This is something really important about Islam too, that we should appreciate, acknowledge, and know about, is that Islam as a religion is not just about the relationship between man and God, but is also about the relationship between man and society, and actively governs and builds infrastructure for man living in society, and gives instruction to the individual and to the community of how these things should be based. To see this, look at Islamic law. Islamic law, when we look at it, composes of two doors. One is called ibadat, or worship, and the other is called mu'amalat, or transactions and dealings. All of fiqh goes into these two categories. Typically, we only talk about one of them, which is that fiqh, Islamic law, should teach us how to fast, how to pray, how to do hajj, how to pay our wajibat of khums and zakat. But that's just one section of how Islamic law is structured. The other side of Islamic law, which is called mu'amalat, talks about man's relationship with society and how to structure each and every single interaction we have in society to be according to Islam. Whether it's giving a gift, which has rules and regulations and structure of how it should be done. Whether, for example, it's looking at getting married, getting divorced, buying and selling. What's permissible to buy and sell? What's the return policy in Islam? All of these elements are also built out within the religion of Islam. And there is a structure to all of this that talks about and regulates man's relationship with society in the view of our faith. This is a little contrary to how other faiths may operate or may talk about, of how, for example, some faiths will only acknowledge and treat and manage relationship, or acknowledge and give guidance on relationship amongst followers of the same faith. Other faiths may simply acknowledge and talk about the relationship between God and man with open boundaries about how society should operate. But Islam is comprehensive, and this is the beauty of the teaching of the Prophet, is that in 10 years, all of the infrastructure was laid out that was refined by the Ahlul Bayt to explain what the Prophet taught, but all of the rules are exactly as the Prophet taught. And this brings us to the next point of understanding the relationship between a Prophet and an Imam. A Prophet is the one who receives instruction and wahi from Allah and establishes the halal and haram of a religion. An Imam can neither add nor remove anything from this religion, but what he can only do is elaborate to explain how does the religion that the Prophet brought apply to the variety of situations, and how it applies to everything that exists in the world from one time to the next. So an Imam can never take something that, for example, that the Prophet made halal and make it haram, nor can he take something that the Prophet made haram and make it halal. But the boundaries of this halal and haram, permissible and impermissible, is elaborated and explained in the uniqueness of each situation by the Imam who comes after the Prophet. So which is why there's a very famous statement that's made, Halalu Muhammadin halalun ila yawm al-qiyamah wa haramu Muhammadin haramun ila yawm al-qiyamah. Whatever the Prophet established as halal will be halal till the Day of Judgment, and whatever he established as haram will be haram till the Day of Judgment. Now again, our Prophet, when he came to the city of Medina, and we'll spend a couple of minutes on this, and inshallah we'll transition into continuing this conversation next week so as not to make our session too long. When our Prophet came to the city of Medina, the first thing that he does is he comes to the border of Medina and he waits for Imam Ali to join him. The Prophet had left Imam Ali behind. We talked about Imam Ali was left on the bed of the Holy Prophet, and he was the one who followed the Holy Prophet after returning all of the trust that had been placed in the hands of the Holy Prophet, closing out the affairs and responsibilities of the Prophet, and then coming. One of the interesting things about this was the aspect that the trust that the Prophet kept was from the pagans, was from the polytheists, was from the people of his society, even though they didn't respect his faith. So much so that it teaches us about what it means to be a Muslim. That a Muslim is someone who is ameen, who is trustworthy to every single person. Our trustworthiness is not only just for the Muslims, it's for every person. Our honesty is not just for the Muslims, that, oh, I should be honest with the Muslims and everybody else, I can do anything I want. No. The actions of the Prophet were very clear in teaching that even when he leaves the city under the threat of death, he respects the property of all of the people, though they may not believe in his religion, and returns the property to each of those people in their own society and community before he leaves that place. So the Prophet comes to the city of Medina, goes to and builds a masjid right outside of the city of Medina called Masjid-e-Quba. The first masjid built in the religion of Islam is in the city of Medina, and is this Masjid Quba. Until today, you can, inshallah, when Allah gives us tawfiq to go to Hajj and to go to Umrah, go to Masjid Quba, go to the first masjid built in the religion of Islam, and pray where the Prophet prayed. That's an amazing opportunity to have, and have that right to be able to pray in this location. It's huge. It's awesome. From here, he waits for Imam Ali to join him, and then he enters into the city of Medina. The city of Medina had a variety of different factions that were operating simultaneously. There was one, the pagans; two, the Jewish people who had moved to the city of Medina. And if you remember, we talked about in one of our earlier sessions that the Jews moved to Hijaz and moved to the city of Medina and Yathrib with the interest of finding that prophet that Allah had promised to them in their books. So they had moved into this area and they were comfortable and well established in the area. And then amongst the Muslims of Medina, who are known as the Ansar, there were two groups. Now, the traditional separation within the original Muslims of Islam were the Ansar and the Muhajir. The Ansar refers to those who are the helpers, and these were people who are native to the city of Medina or Yathrib when the Prophet comes to the city. The Muhajir refers to those people who migrated, and they are the migrants who left the city of Mecca and migrated to the city of Medina to avoid the persecution of the people of Mecca, to learn and to follow the instruction of the Prophet, and to be part of the religion of Islam. These four groups, the polytheists, the Jews, and then the people of Medina and the people of Mecca, the Ansar and the Muhajir. Amongst the Ansar, there were still two more groups. That the Ansar were comprised of two tribes that had been warring for 100 years before the Prophet came, which were known as the Aus and the Khazraj. These were native people of the city of Medina who, in spite of their conflicts, when they heard the message of Islam, came to the message of Islam, and the Prophet made peace between their tribes and made them as a part of the religion of Islam, and collectively gave them the title of the Ansar, or the helpers of the religion of Islam. To manage all of these aspects and different groups and factions that existed was one of the really, really challenging jobs of the time of the origination of the message of Islam. And it's a beautiful work on social development that our Prophet, navigates all of this perfectly and creates a great equalizing society. So first and foremost, let's start with the Muslims. The Prophet takes the Muslims and he sees two different tribes. They're fighting. He makes peace between them, gives them one identity as the Ansar, and treats them with equity amongst themselves, that not one tribe is greater than the next. These are the people who have houses and land in the city of Medina. Next come the Muhajir, who previously, being from the Quraysh, saw themselves as superior to all people in all society, but now moving to Medina with no resources, have no possession of their own. To again create equity in the society, the Prophet takes these Muhajir and people who left everything that they possessed and came to the city of Medina, where people already have something. The Prophet creates a system of equity where he creates a system of brotherhood between the Muhajir and the Ansar, so that those who came with nothing and those who have something don't create a class system amongst themselves. The Prophet says you're brothers now, and you share with each other, and you have equity with each other, and whatever the Ansar have, they share with the Muhajirun, and he created a sense of unity with them. Next, with the people who were from amongst the Jews, our Prophet creates a series of treaties and guidelines of mutual support and protection through acts of war and hardship, that both of these will have the right to both defend one another, work together, and to live in peace and equity, and gives the Jews of Medina a place to stay and still be present amongst society, and they're not castigated or hated or considered as bad people. And then the same right is extended to those who were the polytheists of the time that lived within the city of Medina, that instead of it being harsh and saying, now this is a Muslim city, go away, you're cast out, you're disliked here, they are given a place of acknowledgement and presence within the city so that they can be part of the community too. It's an amazing balancing act, and it's not unique. As a matter of fact, throughout the history of Arabia and society, our Prophet beautifully demonstrated how to make sure that every person has a voice, has a presence, and is allowed to coexist, and is given the opportunity of hidayah. Today, you and I, when we build our mosques and we build our community, most often our community is designed for those people who share our faith and ideology. And that's it. We really don't create the infrastructure for other elements of how we'll work with them and how we'll establish that relationship. We'd like to pretend like they don't exist. But that's not how our Prophet did it. And this is what made Islam successful from the beginning, is that it allowed people the opportunity to coexist and allowed them to grow together and get exposure to the real religion of Islam and learn about this faith. Now, as you can tell, this is a really exciting conversation for me to kind of talk about, and I want to talk about it a lot more, including the battles of Islam. And this is where we'll end on something that I call Bach. Bach is an acronym in our childhood that we came up with that describes the first three battles of Islam that made Islam a global presence. And these were the Battle of Badr, the Battle of Uhud, and the Battle of Khandaq, B-U-K-H, or Khandaq or Ahzab. These three battles are the ones that made Islam a global presence, that allowed for Islam to exist and made sure that Islam could not be wiped off of the face of this earth. And it's important to know that these are the first three main battles of the religion: Badr, Uhud, and Khandaq. In Badr, we see that it's against the pagans of Mecca. In Uhud, it's again against the battles of the pagans. And the third, again, is against all of the pagans of Arabia who came to try and destroy the religion of Islam. And that after the end of the Battle of Khandaq, the pagans came to the conclusion that we will not be able to remove this religion from this world, and that Islam will continue and remain. The fourth of these battles, which is the one that made Islam have financial superiority and resource, is the Battle of Khaybar. The Battle of Khaybar, one of the amazing things about the Battle of Khaybar is prior to that, Islam was not well equipped as an army or to have self-defense or to finance social services for its community. In spite of not having those resources, Islam was able to stand up in the first three battles against the pagans who had access to every resource and ensure that Islam could not be removed from this earth. This is why it's an interesting conversation where we say that the hero and champion of all these battles that we're talking about was none other than our first Imam, Amir al-Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib alayhi salam. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Which is why we say the two things upon which the foundation of Islam was built was the wealth of Bibi Khadija and the sword of Imam Ali. That in Mecca, it was the wealth of Bibi Khadija during the boycott of the Banu Hashim and the Banu Abdul Muttalib that protected and ensured that Islam could not be destroyed. And in Mecca, in Medina, it was the sword of Imam Ali that ensured that Islam was defended against the polytheists and all outside forces to ensure that the religion of Islam would not be wiped out. Inshallah, we'll continue this discussion next week as we get back into the discussion of this story, and we'll elaborate more about some of the specific chronological processes of what happens during this time of our Holy Prophet, and then we'll move on in our discussion going forward. May Allah accept our tawassul of all of the Ahlul Bayt, and khususan our tawassul of our amazing mercy to all of humanity, our Holy Prophet Rasulullah, and give us the tawfiq that we continue the learnings that we have established in the month of Ramadan and continue to make us better Muslims going forward. Remembering my marhumin, your marhumin, and all those who are in need of dua, we'll end our discussion with one Surah Fatiha. Bismillah ar-Rahman.